Yes.
And welcome everybody. I'm Chelsea Powers, I'm the chair, and let's do Meg's favorite thing and go around the room and do a really super fast introduction, and we'll start with Rob.
But can they say one thing they like?
Introduce yourself and say one thing you love about fall.
Rob, the vice chair, less Californians on the road.
Dude.
Which way are we going, this way?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, I'm Derek, board member, outreach committee, and now comes, what are these figs?
Yeah.
These are good. They're
Some are a
so
little
good.
riper than others, they're a little hard to come up with the song.
Fall.
Alright, good.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to wait here.
I'm Meg Biamir, and I'm on the board and on the Equity and Inclusion Committee. And my favorite thing about the fall is that I was born in it, October 10th. 6 more days.
Happy early
Happy
birthday.
I'm Jim. I'm a longtime neighbor. I show up at the meetings once in a while. And what do I like about fall? I like the color of the leaves.
I'm Stephanie Frederick. I'm the secretary and also the transportation co-chair of the board. And what I like about fall is the fall temperatures. It's really nice.
Pam Hodge, board member, and with Meg, it's probably birthday.
Oh, happy early
I'm Shannon Kane. I'm on the Equity and Inclusion Committee. Fall is harvest season, so busy, and the garden is going to bed, which is exciting.
I'm Esther Pearl Duncan, general board member, and PTA liaison between the 3 schools in the neighborhood. And I want to say my favorite thing about fall is 4 out of 5 children's birthdays.
I'm Mary Davis. I'm your unofficial representative for the Leash Botanical Garden, and I kind of getting into my presentation tonight, or my report, but fall color, obviously.
I'm Rachel Lindsay, and I sort of, my favorite thing about fall, is that what we're doing? Fall way back. And I live in the neighborhood. I'm, I guess, studying involved in the Strategic Action Committee and Equity and Inclusion.
Luke Maurer, Learning Gardens Lab, and also a neighbor, and also a Libra, and so it's the start of my year, and fall color and all the things. It's just like the beginning of a new thing. So that's great.
I'm Tina Bjornstead Shafransky, member at large. I love everything about fall. It is the best. I could go on and on about it. I'm Equity and Inclusion, the planning and assessment group. I don't know, am I part of anything else?
You're one of us. All right, Joy.
Dwayne Blackmore, her husband. Really ain't a whole lot myself I like about fall. I prefer summer.
Man after man.
Jean Blackmore, between my valet and my driver. And I love pumpkins, so fall is a great time.
I'm Don Ingram. I live down the street. We're just visiting. We haven't been here yet.
Welcome.
Just like Halloween.
Hi, I'm Bevan Hansel, and this is our first meeting, so
Welcome.
and what I like about fall is it's only 6 more months till spring.
Now, Hancock board member, I guess it's got to be the Apple Festival board commissioner.
When is that, Malcolm?
Next weekend.
The weekend after. I work all 6 days.
See you there. All right, Gail.
I'm Gail, and
I like pumpkin spice and the leavenworth on the festival.
I'm Lynn, I'm the treasurer, and I also love the color, the crispness in the air, and fall boots.
And we're lucky to have a reporter from Village Portland here. Do you want to join in the introductions?
Sure, I'm Jeffrey Todd. I also think it's just great that it's only 6 months to spring. That's a great answer.
All right, we're gonna move on. I don't see Carol here. She's normally here from Woodstock Library. So check Multnomah County Library's site for their upcoming events, and we'll hopefully see Carol next week. And that means Mary's at Leash Botanical.
Yeah, well, I do want to invite you all to come out this month in October because, man, the fall color is just fabulous. And if you don't have the time to drive up the gorge or the gas money, you can just scoot out to 122nd and Johnson Creek, and all the time you would spend driving on the road, you can walk around the garden and just get back to what you need to be doing. So next month, the gift shop is going to be participating in Shop Local. You've probably heard of it, Little Boxes. It's the 3 days after Thanksgiving. And next month we'll have all kinds of details of what we're going to do as part of Little Boxes.
And how did the Summer Sipping Series go?
It went very well. In fact, we got so inspired by people's response to the bitters, the last one in this series, that the gift shop folks are going to develop our own signature bitters with the gal who does them. So we're really excited about that too. So lots of fun things going on.
Great. All right. What's our news from the schools, Esther?
Okay, I went on the websites for Whitman and Woodmere and got their PTA information, and I printed some out from on the table. For Woodmere, on October 17th, which is the third Wednesday of the month, that's when they meet, and they meet in the cafeteria. They have a potluck dinner, and they meet from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. They are working on their garden around the school. So they have the garden club is changing the look of the Woodmere campus, making it look fabulous. Whitman just recently had one of their general meetings, and they also, they apparently have their board meetings, seems to be the same night as our meetings. So, but they are, Whitman is very thankful for the donation that we made towards their first event, and they did send their thank you to Chelsea and myself. And Lane has their PTA meeting the second Tuesday of the month, which will be, their first one will be November 13th at 6:30 in their library. And I want to encourage everybody to continue to save your cans and bottles for Lane, and you can contact me and I can pick them up. That's like their biggest fundraiser of the year. And also, if you have shrubs or bulbs or something that you want to plant and you want to do a random planting, we've had a community member actually has been doing random plantings in the front of the school, and they greatly appreciate it. Beautify the crown jewel of our neighborhood, and it's greatly appreciated. So yeah, that's what I have for Lane, Woodmere, and Whitman.
I do know that Woodmere is doing a fundraiser, just to plug their PTA a little more. If you like gift wrap, they have a fundraiser going on. You do not have to support my child, you can support just the school. So if you want to support Woodmere, you can pass that around. But it is a major fundraiser. They use the funds for giving to the teachers, for the events they do, and I think it also goes towards field trips, if I remember correctly. All right.
Let's support.
Sorry, I was late there. I don't see Grant here from the community watch. Anybody who's on the watch board, is there anything we need to report there?
A few things. It seems like there's been an uptick in issues down in Arrow Heights Park. And I don't, is Grant okay? It sounded like he had an incident or something.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything
We should probably talk to Grant
Yeah,
about
we
that,
are.
but I do know there was some question about Sergeant Tig and the
Yes.
neighborhood response team being reassigned. So I did reach out to Sergeant Tig about that, and he said that, down here. So the neighborhood response team is assigned on violent crime reduction throughout East, and that will cut into their time for dealing with livability stuff. Those missions run a couple of weeks at a time. They are available Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday until 10 a.m. and all day Fridays for livability work. And they're extending their days to be able to continue with the reduced livability stuff. But the other part is that he is resigning from Portland Police Bureau on October 12th. So he doesn't know who our new contact is, but when they do, they'll let us know. So if you see Sergeant Tig, tell him best of luck on whatever he does next, because we do not have him anymore after the 12th. So when we know who our new person is, I'll definitely let you guys know. We're also initiating the steps to get Chief Outlaw, thing for Miranda, to come visit a meeting, but we do not have a date on that yet. So for that, hopefully soon.
I do have a connection with the East Precinct Commander Carmen, a former classmate, so I can reach out to him and ask him what's going on.
He was included in this series of emails, so hopefully he'll follow up with us, but if not, we'll definitely take you up on that. Feel free to that. Yes. Yeah. We definitely won't stop you from reaching out. All right, that brings us to Learning Garden Labs. Luke, tell us about the awesome stuff coming up.
So, lots of news. Though I'll say first that I can segue in as I can advocate for community neighborhood watch through Learning Gardens, and Frank Caldera, who many folks know, there's lots of nods there, was arrested yesterday trespassing in the Brentwood South Garden. I had also reported on him barbecuing in a water meter on Cooper behind the church. So he was picked up yesterday. That was Officer Higginbotham, who knows Frank and works with Frank. So that's my own little update there. We've got the Harvest Festival at Learning Gardens Lab coming up on the 17th. There's going to hopefully be a cider press, interactive activities, seed saving, leaf piles, and just general fall merrymaking. We're welcoming a number of new staff in, and this is our first year having all of our positions be paid staff, so we're hoping for a lot more accountability on programs and a lot more direct kind of program management on things. We're also expecting that Saturday 12/1 we'll be having our annual wreath making fundraiser, and I'll have more information about that at the November meeting, but I just want to put that on your radar.
What's the time on this?
The Harvest Fest? The Harvest Fest, sorry, thank you, is 3:30 to 5:30. So if you happen to want to go to the Woodmere PTA meeting, you can just swing right over there after the Learning Gardens Lab.
And the date again?
Is the 17th, Wednesday the 17th. And then
any food, or what should we expect? Music?
There will be music. There will also be, hopefully, the same chef from PSU Eats will be featuring a soup and salad kind of demo. So there will be some food and some cider and some games and all sorts of fun stuff. And the farm stand has been in and out and has been dipping in and out. We have a class that's currently, each year, the intro class for the graduate program that staffs Learning Gardens Lab takes on a new aspect of LGL to kind of help support and reimagine, and we want to figure out how to make that more consistent and sustainable for the people involved in it. It was really tough this summer. We didn't have a direct coordinator in that position. We had Lentz Youth Initiative interns helping out with that program, but it was really hit and miss, especially with extreme heat and smoke. It was just a lot of factors. So we appreciate folks' patronage, and we want to deliver on that, and we just want to do it in a way that is not backbreaking for LGL and is best for the community. We have a couple of youth interns that we're working with this that we're bringing on as well. It's going to be really interesting. There's one thing that I didn't write down that I'm now trying to remember. Oh, and then lastly, I taught a capstone, PSU senior capstone this summer, and one of those students is a community development major and is going to be working with me on assessing impact, LGL's impact in the community, and hopefully aligning our strategic plan and the neighborhood's strategic plan. So I'm going to connect her with hopefully the online version of the strategic plan, and meeting weekly at the Misdemeanor Meadows as an aspect of our community development work. So that's all from LGL. Oh yeah.
Any other announcements? Okay. We will be talking about the draft work plan in our second half, and it is up there to view. So if you want to know more about strategic partnerships and things like that, it's up there. Oh yes, we need to talk about, so Spooktacular has been a behind-the-scenes, heart-wrenching adventure for those who don't know.
So let's tell them what it is.
So there was a snafu with the date. I did not reserve it quickly enough, and it was already reserved. But the neighbor who reserved it is absolutely amazing and has offered to share the space with us. So it's her son's birthday, but he is a Halloween fanatic, and she thinks that he will love having a Halloween party.
Oh my gosh.
So I would love to come up with something fun for him to do, maybe be the Spooktacular King, or award the trophy, something along those lines, so we can kind of thank him for sharing his birthday. But we will be having our trunk or treat in the parking lot. A plea from all of our educators and parents to definitely make your trunks look not like trunks, so kids don't think they can ask all strangers for candy from their cars. Please, if you're going to trunk or treat, disguise your trunk so it's not a trunk.
So it's terrible.
There is a sign up online, or you can talk to one of us, and you can find that on our Facebook page. There will soon be a post up on our website. I just ran out of time today.
What is that date again? The 27th?
It is October 27th, and we will be having it from 3 to 5. It is Saturday. We will do trunk or treat, the free costume exchange we always put up, and maybe light snacks. But it's going to be, and then we'll of course have games. So if you're interested in running a game, or if you would like to have a game or activity as part of your trunk or treat, we'd really like to engage kids a lot more out there this year, so that it's not just a trick or treat, here's your candy, move on. Yes, sister.
And I also spoke with Travis Smith of the food pantry over at Lane, and he loved the idea of us getting donations of hygiene, pet food, non-food items for the food pantry. So we can just have a box for donations, and if we can put that out there that it's to benefit the
Awesome.
food pantry. I also have his email address.
So we will be adding in the non-food pantry, or the non-food item dry goods drive, right?
Yeah.
Non-food item drive. And the details for that will also go up online. If there's anything else to remember, it's spectacular. If you have costumes you would like to donate for the costume exchange, you can do that ahead of time, or just bring them to the event. It's we just try to always have a rack of free costumes for kids to pick from, that or add to their costumes, or they can't decide what they want to be. So
or even miscellaneous things like, oh, you have a feather boa that you're not going to use, or Mardi Gras beads, or
anything
crazy
that could
glasses.
accessorize a costume.
And are people here welcome to just come even for like an hour or half hour to help out, or just enjoy?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
We will take any and all volunteers. You don't have to be a board member. And we can work around pretty much everything and accommodate. There was one other thing. If you have an idea for how to keep people from double, triple, quadruple dipping at cars, let me know. I'm trying to think of a way we can, because we had a lot of kiddos last year swinging back around.
Yes,
that's a
I
great
love
idea.
that idea.
So let's work on that, and we'll find out a later date.
Or if anybody has
Or
a
a
huge
sticker.
roll of those tickets, you could hand out 10 tickets to each kid, or however many trunks there are. I don't know which is more complicated.
How about we call it a spook port?
A spook port. Sure.
Let's talk about this more offline.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're supposed to, we're running a little behind, sorry guys. We're supposed to have some folks here from Defend Oregon. All right, you're here.
Just
All
in
right.
time.
And tell us your name.
I'm Neil Simon.
All right, it is your turn.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for being so involved in your neighborhood and in your community, and thanks for having me here as a guest.
Neil,
Yes.
stand up maybe so we can
Sure.
really
Yeah,
well
I
see
didn't
you.
want to be, it's such a casual affair, but
Go
I'll
for it.
leave this here and I'll go.
Wherever you want. Come on up.
All right. Well, thank you much. So, yeah, I'm Neil Simon. I'm a volunteer with our Oregon, Defend Oregon. We say Defend Oregon because there's a lot of things to defend right now on the Oregon ballot. There's a lot of statewide constitutional amendments and ballot measures that people are going to be facing in November, and they might be confused by some of them because there's really been a lot of outside money, a lot of big corporate money, and a lot of nefarious actors, some who've been aligned with groups who are declared as hate groups that are working on anti-immigration measures. So we're here to basically say to vote no on a lot of ballot measures. Unfortunately, there's only one that we feel like is really worth it on the statewide ballot. That's 102, the affordable housing measure that's going to give folks, the cities, counties, opportunity to leverage public-private partnerships in a way that they cannot now, so that they can build more affordable housing with different bond money and state money that they receive. So why do we need to defend our ballot? That's the main crux of it, because there's a lot of forces that have aligned to put together a statewide campaign to put Oregon families on the defensive and to prevent opportunities for us to better fund our schools and healthcare systems going forward. So I'll try to walk through a few of them right now, but I'm really only here to talk about 103 and 104, but I know you're going to be sort of bombarded with mail. You've probably already seen some things at the groceries, at the checkout stands for one of the ballot measures, so we'll go over that a little bit. 102 is the referral to the voters by the legislature in the last legislative session. This is a small change that allows local government to use the housing bond money in these public-private partnerships that they cannot now to build more affordable housing. The rest, 103, special interest carve-out, mainly the big, large, mostly out-of-state groceries that are really backing this one. The Krogers, Costco's involved in this, even if we might like Costco. They're really trying to put the kibosh on any potential taxes that they may have to pay more than they pay now. And we already know that the corporate tax rate in Oregon is among the lowest in the nation. So this is like a further activist measure on their part to keep themselves at that really low tax rate. We also are urging opposition to 104, which would drastically expand the 3/5 majority that's required at the state legislature for increasing any types of fees at the parks, or fees for what we charge for a driver's license. Some really basic things that, just to keep up with inflation, of course over the years we're going to increase every now and again, but this would enshrine in the Constitution this 3/5 majority requirement, which seems excessive, and there's some new editorials out just this week from Portland Tribune, Street Roots, and the Oregonian, all saying this is just beyond the pale. Not to mention the fact that it's really just going to make it a lot easier for lobbyists to fight any potential increases on some of these fees in the future. Next, 105, this is the anti-immigration measure or anti-immigrant measure that you've probably heard about. This would repeal Oregon's 30-year-old sanctuary state status. And Measure 106 is an anti-choice constitutional amendment. This would greatly infringe on women's rights. Obviously, you probably know the state legislature this past cycle, this past legislative session has put really Oregon on the map as being really progressive for women's healthcare issues, and this constitutional amendment will really take us back. So we're also backing the No Cuts to Care, No on 106 campaign. I'll skip over a little bit about all the organizations that are behind all these things, but suffice it to say they're not good actors. Southern Poverty Law Center obviously has declared these immigrant rights groups to be nothing but fronts for hate speech and hate organizations. There's a lot of money, some from the Koch Foundation that's behind this, so the Koch brothers money comes into play. A lot of out-of-state money that's trying to protect corporate interests are backing these measures. So, the good news is we've got a great coalition, and we want your group to be a part of it, we want your neighbors to be a part of it, we want you as individuals to be a part of it. And that coalition includes public health organizations, family advocates, environmentalists, some labor groups, some tax experts that are all part of this Our Oregon coalition to really help us say no and stand up for what we want Oregon values to be. I'll do a little word on 104, just to give you a little bit more detail. This is one of the most confusing and poorly written ballot measures I've seen as someone who's been involved in public service for quite a while. I think this is why even the Oregonian has said, don't do it. Really is opening the door to allow these lobbyists to do whatever they want. And if we allow companies to say, you can never increase our taxes, we have a constitutional amendment, you can never increase taxes on our products, including things like defining toilet paper and toothpaste as luxury goods. I mean, there's some really weird language in here that just puts us down a very odd, slippery slope of what can and cannot face a tax increase under a constitutional amendment. And we're basically saying, if this passes, that, we're just giving away our rights to be able to fight these things very, very well in the future. Talk a little about who's behind it. 103. This is grocery, Kroger, Albertsons, Safeway, Costco. It's part of a national strategy by big grocers and big soda to really put up a firewall against any potential increases on their corporate taxes and on taxation that they face. And they're starting that fight here in Oregon. So
yeah, so for 103 specifically, what is the measure? It would actually ban like local municipalities from enacting essentially sales taxes or things of that nature?
That's in there,
Okay.
but it's anything that, I mean, it's the state. It's a state ballot measure, so it would, yes, it would infringe on cities and counties' rights, but also, of course, starting at the state level of what taxation can be and how it couldn't go above where we're at now on these products.
So these corporations pay a certain amount of taxes already in Oregon.
Right.
This initiative would cap it, right, or make it very difficult.
It'd be very difficult
It's
to.
already low level to be increased.
Yes, and they do
These
that.
are not grocery taxes. These are corporation taxes.
Correct, and it's on the products that they sell or move. So it could be something that's not even sold at a grocery, but a Kroger truck is shipping it somewhere. And you can say, if it's in their shipping container, and that's how they get into these things that they define as luxury goods, because they're being shipped. They say, well, toothpaste, tissues, all these things that are sort of not groceries. It's not a grocery tax. These are not food items, but it's so they're trying to say, and you can't tax that stuff either because those are luxuries.
Okay, so I asked about specifically taxes that are not connected to the income product.
Yes, and
All
so
corporations pay something to the state
Right.
because they use resources within the state, like roads and so on. So no matter what the company does, right, I'm just asking, they pay some taxes. So this kind of tax is also targeted in this measure.
It is not.
Aside, is not targeted.
it is not.
Oh, okay.
It's saying that the goods that make up their business
Okay.
cannot be ever taxed.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not saying you can never raise our corporate tax rate, but they're saying our business, all of our products that we sell can never be.
Thank you, I didn't understand. Thank you very much.
So would an example of this be like, say, across the country, a handful of municipalities have instigated like soda taxes and things like that. This would kind of negate something along those lines?
Yes, beyond negating it, it would say it's unconstitutional to do that. So it's basically saying we can't even have that debate.
So the corporations don't charge the taxes, the state does. So the state regulates what they're going to charge taxes on.
Yes.
Okay, how does this work into that? Because the state would tax everybody for everything they've got to do.
Right.
You bet.
If this measure were passed, the state would not be able to tax a very large cadre of products that are sold by these corporations.
So we tax everybody else.
True. So it would put the state in a position where it would say, okay, darn, we lost, on this fight. The citizens decided that we can't tax all this stuff. So to come up with paying for our teachers, paying for our roads, we're going to have to come up with another way to balance our budget. It would further create a tough dynamic in a state where we're already sort of on the shoestring sometimes.
Well, if they made everybody responsible for the money they spent, it would solve all the problems.
Who's the they? They made everybody responsible for the money they spent? Right, who are you talking about?
Well, basically, everyone that the state gives money to the tax government, they're held accountable for how they spend the money they get. And you probably go a whole lot further.
Mary, do you have a question?
Since this would go into the Constitution, it goes into the Constitution, do you anticipate this would be challenged in the courts as being an unconstitutionally written measure that cannot be...
To be honest, I have not heard that argument. I've heard about, it's very flawed, it will make it really easy for lobbyists. In the editorials the newspapers have written, I have not seen that raised as a reason to vote either way on it. I could imagine for sure that there would be challenges brought, but I don't know who those plaintiffs might be.
ACLU
Right.
comes to mind. But tax policy and the Constitution do not mix well, ever.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on with our agenda. And Neil, if you want to stay till the break, does anyone have any more questions, or do you want to let Neil go home?
I'm happy to stay till the break and pass around if anyone wants to sign up to be involved in the effort. Happy to have more folks on the fight, and I'll stay till the break. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. All right. I forgot to say in announcements, we received some mail. So there are some meetings to know about. The Portland Planning and Sustainability Commission is having a hearing on October 9th from 12:30 to 4:45, and that's downtown, and I have an address here. 1900 Southwest 4th Avenue, Suite 2500. And the things to know about that is they are going to be talking about the manufactured dwelling map changes and inclusionary housing extension. And if you are interested in the inclusionary housing extension zoning code, I have this notification here. But it's about a program to help produce affordable units through multifamily development or a zoning regarding that. So I have that for everybody to see at the break. And then we also got notifications of 2 Airbnbs, one at 54th and Bell, and one at 70, one on 65th. So 7854 Southeast 65th, 5407 Southeast Bell. So if you want to know about those, I have those notices. And then we have an update on the Office of Crime, or the Office of Community and Civic Life and their crime prevention program. As many of you know, Mariana Lamonto has been our crime prevention coordinator for I think 5 years now, or 5 years. And so they are doing some restructuring, and she is no longer going to be our crime prevention coordinator. So we're very sad to lose her. She was very sad when she told me but they are restructuring into teams. And I have a list of those teams here. She's being reassigned in North Portland. But our team, the East team, consists of Terry Popino, Mary Tompkins, Stacy Vu, and Yolanda Sanchez. And I can give you these names, Stephanie, for proper spelling. So if you want to know about any of those changes, you can check the most recent BDNA e-newsletter or come talk to me. And now we are going to talk about the ongoing saga with Southeast Uplift. Board members involved in that? Yeah, go ahead.
Proposition, because we got the treasurer's report scheduled for the first part of the second half. But from the notes that Lynn sent out today, it seems like the treasurer's report has a lot to do with Southeast Uplift.
That's true.
I'd consider motioning that we just kind of discuss both of them, kind of one right after the other, and then take a break, because it kind of feel like we're going to be coming back and forth.
Or take a break and then do something.
All right, let's do that. Let's take a break, and then we're going to spend a lot of time on Southeast Uplift and finances. So I hope you guys stay with us. So we're going to take our break early. We'll be back at, let's be back at 7:45.
Our Family Gardens coordinator asked me to communicate to the neighborhood association that we have 2 family plots available. So if you know of somebody who might be interested in a roughly 15 by 15 plot at Learning Gardens Lab, please feel free to put them in contact with me. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Shannon.
Okay, so we're gonna change up the agenda a little bit, and we're going to let Lynn do the treasurer report, and we're gonna dive into all of these interesting financial issues.
All right. So there's not a lot of activity really for the past month, just our usual, small little things. The main thing that has happened probably in the past month has been, we recently received some invoices from Southeast Uplift that were for translation services provided earlier in the year that ended up at EPCO, I believe.
For some reason.
For some reason, like months ago, and then Victor from EPCO finally forwarded them to Molly. So now they're beyond the deadline for us getting the money back to be reimbursed from the City Accommodations Fund. So we, Meg, Chelsea, I, Stephanie, had been talking to Molly at Southeast Uplift about actually the cleanup. But in the meantime, these things have come up. So those invoices, they're not going to be reimbursed by the city. So we're trying to see if Southeast Uplift will kind of step up, and they're partly to blame in that they didn't assist. I also think, Victor at EPCO that sat on these could have reached out to somebody at Brentwood Darlington saying, are these yours or these are yours? The translation provider, she billed her contact at ONI and didn't really follow up either as to why she wasn't getting paid, didn't reach out to us. So then, there's a little bit of, everybody has a little bit of part in it. So those expenses are $535. Also, for the translation invoices, the previous treasurer, Robin, she paid November and December's, hoping to get reimbursed from the city. There was also some miscommunication. The city tried to reimburse Brentwood Darlington, but because we weren't a vendor, they couldn't. So they asked for Southeast Uplift to rebuild it, so that it could be reimbursed that way. But somewhere along the line, Robin was working with Kelly, who's no longer there, and I have really no idea where the breakdown is, except that that's where it ended with Southeast Uplift. And that's money that we actually laid out in December that, again, don't know if that's coming back to us. And then there's also the interpretation services that was provided during the debate, and that was actually sign language interpretation, which was required. There was a deaf candidate running, and also we were trying to be more inclusive to everybody. And I think the Commissioner Nick Fish also demanded that he provide it, or he wouldn't participate. So we actually received, the debate was in April, and we received the invoice in June. Again, that was way beyond the deadline to submit it to the city. This was also forwarded to me by Robin. I paid it, and then when I went to try to get reimbursed, that's when I found out, like, oh gee, the deadline is done in April 30th. So anyways, that's kind of the breakdown of where things are that we haven't been reimbursed for. So I was hoping that we discuss some things like vendors need to, invoice us in a timely manner, not 2 months after the services have been provided. I also think that if we work with vendors, we should not pay late fees either. The Alma Luna invoices that she sent me, because I wanted to know what was outstanding, she slapped on like $100-something now late, which
Not our fault.
not our fault.
Oh, no.
We did not agree to pay that. But anyways, I think it would be helpful if we make that clear with vendors as far as you need to bill us on a timely manner. We're not going to pay late fees. We're a small nonprofit association. So anyways, that's kind of where that is at. But all those invoices together total up to $1,287 that we might not see.
So, if I could
Sure.
jump in, I have a couple questions. I know that's complicated. I've been in it over the last few weeks, but it is complicated and confusing. The first question I have for the board, really, and the community is, do we want to consider writing an official letter from the board requesting, more officially that Southeast Uplift strongly consider this reimbursement? I think it would have more impact if it did come from the board, and I think what you laid out would, my sense is, reasonably be a thing for us to consider doing. So that's one question. We can talk about that. And then we go to who? Oh, Southeast Uplift.
Who would, the board?
The board and the executive director. Yeah.
Your executive director ran for it.
That's was my thought, but we can talk about that. As a sign of solidarity and intention, serious intention. So that's
I
one.
agree.
Yeah.
We should write a
Oh, okay.
letter from our board to their board.
So what's your second point before we move to
Yeah.
discussion on that?
Sure. Well, if Nick Fish with the city demanded or required for his presence that we have a sign language interpreter, which is a good thing to have, does that not mean that the city has to reimburse us? I mean, should it not? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, exactly.
What else? Yeah, he wasn't there, he's ill, we get that. But that's a question.
Right, and ideally, that would have happened had we been able to submit the invoice before the April, I believe the deadline last year was either April 30th or May 15th.
And the fact that
we got the invoice like June 10th.
And that's not our fault anyway,
Right.
so.
And we were also not made aware of the deadline for
Right.
submission
Right.
when we were told about this fund and how to use
So
it.
is that a letter to the city that we want to write? Is that a different, perhaps a separate letter?
Maybe we should write the same letter twice, or send one each.
That could happen.
And to Nick Fish.
Do we send one to the Commissioner Fish?
Seems like we would.
I think.
Yeah, bring Nick Fish in this.
With a copy to Mayor Wheeler,
Yeah.
our friend Ted.
Well,
Just saying.
this is only under which commissioner now?
Who is it under now? Fritz? No,
The Office of Community and Civic Life is under Chloe
you daily, that's.
So
Maybe
if
Chloe.
Chloe is not performing and Southeast Uplift is their contractor, then I would think that it would go to the commissioner in charge of Office of Civic Life, their new title.
That would make sense. Perhaps we could CC Nick on it since he was involved in it, in that. Does that make
I
sense?
agree, yeah.
I mean,
I don't,
I think we write letters to everybody. Say, hey, what's up with that?
it let the entire commission know that these accommodations fund that was meant to help us be more inclusive is instead costing us a lot of money because it was not, we were not given clear instructions on how to use it, and we were not given all of the information of deadlines, and that the neighborhood coalition that is supposed to be helping us has been less than helpful.
I think it would look better if we were given any instructions as to if it leaves out this, well, we might have heard about it, we didn't, or it wasn't signed or explained to us. We didn't hear anything about deadlines.
Yeah, we were told there is $100,000 accommodation fund for translation, childcare, and other things to make it easier for your neighbors to attend events. Bill it at will.
We complied, so you comply.
Yeah.
Do we happen to have that in an email?
It's probably in the BDNA email or mine. I can look for it.
All right,
So, but it took us, it was quite a thread to even track down.
I'm
the
sorry,
fund.
yeah, I know.
And I believe that Paul Leisner was the administrator or the person who told us about it, if I remember correctly.
And I actually reached out to him
Oh,
very
good.
early on with the $432 sign language interpretation, and his response was a basic, I'll look into it, and I never been back.
I think he's off the board as of now, sort of. So, yeah, we may have to, what am I doing? Okay. We may have to, I don't know, go at it another way, but I do feel strongly that this is not okay for us to be out of pocket $1,287. From an equity perspective, we, one of the things that we are working on assiduously here is helping the Southeast Uplift and the city to enact their own equity agendas and their own strategies to ensure that they are treating neighborhoods equitably, and this is kind of a case study in inequitability.
Yeah.
And maybe it should be framed that way, in a polite way. So that's my 2 cents.
I think we gotta do Ed and City Council, Southeast Uplift, Board, and Executive, and ONI, and Board, from our board as an official letter. I think we should,
Commissioner in charge of it.
all 3 fronts should be hit.
Okay, is that an official motion, Gail?
Okay, wait, can you go through that again, because I really didn't follow that.
One more,
Sorry.
A letter from our board
Yeah,
to mayor,
this is on which subject?
the money that we put out on good faith.
This is for the sign language?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, fine.
And interpreters, the
Oh,
money we paid in good faith and are not getting reimbursed for, which is unfair to us. We should write a letter, I say we. Mayor Ted Wheeler and all city council, Office of
Community and Civic Life.
Community and Civic
What
Life
used to be
Board,
board.
and Southeast Uplift, Executive Director and Board, from our board, and just make sure that we include everybody in all 3 letters, saying, hey, we put out our money in good faith, it's because we were told we would be reimbursed. We were not told the deadline. We got these invoices, we forwarded them as they were received, and then we found out there was a deadline. Most unfair. Love, Brett Darlington.
So
Wait,
doing
so
it,
wait,
yeah, go
3
ahead.
letters.
I believe it's the same letter to all 3 parties.
Yeah, and that works too.
I think the same letter to all 3 of them.
Wait,
cross.
I'm sorry to be so stupid and
No, it's
slow.
okay,
That's
it's
how I'm
okay.
feeling right now. I've got about 7 people, Ted, City Council, ARCO, Udalys, Southeast Uplift,
Yes.
Executive Director and Board.
Yes.
That's more than 3.
So
Designers. What?
So there's 3 organizations, the city,
Oh,
Southeast
yeah.
Uplift, and the Office of Community and Civic Life, and we'll address them to the appropriate people.
Oh, okay, I get it.
There you go.
Sorry, thank you.
But there's going to be Dear Executive Director and
Yeah.
a name specific, Dear Mayor Ted and Udaly, letter, Love Brentwood Darlington, and Southeast Uplift and Civic Life.
Because it's
Same
better,
letter,
yeah,
same
that they
letter
know,
works.
that they know there's mutual accountability.
Yes.
I think that, in this case, that's
We
legitimate.
could always do, yes, we have sent the same letter to such and such organizations as a CC.
So I agree with all of that. I
Okay,
just
Pam?
add one further comment, that it's not just about the money.
Right.
It's also about the time commitment that all of us as volunteers are having to expend in order to resolve what should have been a very routine and simple matter. So it is a measure of dysfunction of these organizations. And unless it's addressed, it's going to discourage civic participation.
Oh, there you go.
The city should have contacted us after the very first invoice to say, hey, you didn't do this correctly, let's fix it. But as you say, the November and December invoices are still outstanding.
And there was a period of time for when I think Robin emailed Mary at the time owning the accommodation fund, and like 2 months go by, and Mary said, oh, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, this is what needs to happen. And it's just like, and that is the same with, that's been my experience with dealing with Southeast Uplift since May. And you're right, it just makes it so, you're like, why, I'm spending so much time on this that, you know, like it should be a simple thing. Here's the invoice, here's my reimbursement form, we get a check. It shouldn't be this research and what happened over here, and it is discouraging, actually.
And if you add up the time
This
that's
is what
been
we were
spent.
promised, this is, we replied in
$50
good
an hour.
faith.
Stephanie?
Okay, I just want to verify the 3 points that Pam made. So it's not just the money, it's also the time commitment to resolve problems that should have been totally routine.
Yep.
And not involve the time commitment. So it's a measure of dysfunction in various areas. Okay, and so if we don't fix it, we are going to be discouraged? Is that what you said?
Yeah, if the
Right.
city and these organizations don't fix the dysfunction, it has a chilling effect on civic participation.
Nice.
All right, so do we want to make a motion on the floor to write these lovely letters that we've discussed?
I so move.
All right, so Jean moves that we write the letters as discussed. Meg seconds. All in favor of writing these letters? Stephanie, I'm counting 13. Is that what you're getting, or is it 12? 10, 12. It's 12. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. Let's write a letter. If you would like to be involved in that letter, see Meg and me and Lynn and Gail, if you want to be in on that.
Yeah, we should, I think it would be helpful to have a team working on it like we do,
Right.
so that we get all these
So,
points in.
We'll do
Yeah.
that offline, and maybe we can review a draft of it at our own committee's meeting on the third Tuesday of this month.
That sounds good.
Which is the third Tuesday of this month.
16th.
The 16th. Speaking of committees meetings, we will not have one in November. I just want to put that out there. It's Thanksgiving week.
Yes.
We are thankful to not meet on Thanksgiving week. So, go ahead, Stephanie first.
Okay, so I just have a little question, or a little idea about the letters. And this may not work at all, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. A long time ago, I had a problem with a contractor, and for very little money, I got this law firm to write a letter to him threatening that we will take action if you don't, reimburse the homeowner. I was wondering if having at the bottom of our letter a CC to some law firm that we just asked, we'll pay you $100 if we can CC you on this letter without them having to provide much in the way of service or anything. Would that strengthen our letters? And is that possible?
Pam, do you want to weigh in on that?
I think just on our own letterhead would be fine for now. That's my personal opinion.
We can use the lawyer as a
Second
plan
one.
B.
Plan B.
Yeah, I mean, once we start, the threat of litigation, maybe it gets picked up to the city attorney's office, then, oh my gosh, they're going down Venice every time.
Right.
If I remember correctly, Southeast Uplift does retain their own attorney as well, and I believe that neighborhood associations are allowed to consult that attorney, if I remember correctly.
That's true.
I think I would wait another 30 days for them to reply before I.
Yep, so
Just
let's do
stepwise
our letter
escalation.
and put that in our pockets as our next move.
Yeah, that'll be Plan B.
Yeah, I appreciate the thought and keeping it available, so the more brainstorming the better, so thank you for
I
everything's
think,
brainstorming.
yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think we're not quite there yet.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so let's, now, continuing on the thread of Southeast Uplift, let's finish up our issues by talking about, before we go too far away from issues of the cleanup. And Meg, do you want to talk a little bit about what we requested information-wise from the cleanup and
I'm willing.
where it's...
I'm willing. Lynn, are you more versed in this? I mean, you want to take lead, we can fill in. I think you probably have a better sense, if that's okay to ask.
As far as the cleanup, so I kind of came in on the tail. end.
Oh, okay.
But, so that I think is what started the whole the meeting with Molly was that we weren't getting answers on the cleanup.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of Stephanie. I got mixed up because you are the expert on this, right?
Yeah, but I haven't reviewed recently
Okay.
what we asked, but one of the things we asked for.
Sorry.
All right. Well, before our cleanup, Southeast Uplift representative told us there was plenty of money and all our costs incurred for the May 2018 cleanup were going to be covered. Then that turned out to not be true. And so we're $515 less than what we thought we were going to get reimbursed for. So that was, we couldn't get a clear answer from them about why that was. And in our meeting, we wanted an accounting of how much money they got from Metro and how they spent it. And they won't do that. They will not tell us. They will not give us that accounting. They've given us words. And they said, oh, we got this much, and then there was only enough for, we had higher expenses and the recovery, well, the haulers charged more, and so there wasn't as much to give. We didn't get an accounting. We just got words.
Okay, and I'll add on to that.
Okay, go ahead.
And there's also some unclarity about how the Metro grant, out of which the cleanups are funded, how the equitability is handled, because there's some murkiness around. Some neighborhoods are dipping into next year's pot. Thank you. And not that that's like illegal, but just the way, we want some clarity about how the whole thing is handled. And the fact that they're not being forthcoming makes us nervous that something is amiss with the way that they're doing their bookkeeping. Not that I'm accusing anybody, but it's exhausting to try to get information and have to keep asking a lot of different ways. So I'm thinking on that front, again, the Southeast Uplift Board
Drop the ball.
really, well, I think we need to have another conversation with the whole board and not just Molly, because I think that would be our next step, since we haven't been successful in getting that information from Molly. Does that seem reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Is this another letter?
Okay, but I want to ask a question about that. Since this is public money, aren't we entitled to know how it was spent?
Yeah, I would think so. And also, Metro definitely is a government agency if they're the grantor, and so there should be a contact person at Metro that can provide the details of the grant. And the grantee, Southeast Uplift, has reporting responsibilities under the terms of the grant. So that should all be
They're
discoverable.
nonprofit, they have to be open book.
Yeah, Molly was very hesitant to, she asked us like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
she
That
was
was
like,
weird.
oh, well, how would you feel if other neighborhoods knew your financial books? And we're like, we're fine.
Say, great.
Yeah, sure.
We show our finances in every...
publish ours.
So maybe we just include this in the first letter, because it's all one and the same thing.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
organizational dysfunction.
Right.
So
And like
example one,
transparency.
example two, one letter. to everyone.
And as a footnote or context, I think there are many neighborhoods besides Brentwood, Darlington who have expressed that they've experienced a lot of challenge in working with Southeast Uplift. So we're kind of, doing everybody a favor, and we're the canary in the coal mine. So there's a way in which we're being at the forefront of accountability for Southeast Uplift in general. So it's a service that we're doing in a sense.
Especially if we
Well,
express our concern over their dysfunction. Is there anything wrong? How can we help?
There you go.
Well, and we can also
Partners.
mention that it affects our neighborhood, and we worry that it affects our neighboring neighborhoods as well.
And credibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I think it's time for us to go to the next level of ask. So I appreciate, the support of the board in accountability.
Stephanie?
Because one of the things we talked about was going to Metro and getting the information, and somebody said they had a connection into Metro.
I have a connection at Metro for paint.
No, I think,
Well,
if I may.
Yeah, no, my partner works at Metro. He has nothing to do with this particular grant, but I could ask him if he knows who does.
Yep. If we could just find out who the grant administrator is for it.
Yeah, there's a recycling department within Metro, so I'm assuming it's there, and maybe a simple phone call.
That would be amazing.
And if that's not appropriate or practical, I'm certainly willing to check with Metro and, in general.
Yeah, I don't really want to put it on the spot.
Yeah, I know.
With another
It
department.
was
I'm
not
kind of
obvious on their
feeling-
website who administrates their
Well-
grants, so if he can even just get us a number for the grants department,
All right.
then we can call and ask around, which is often a good way to find information.
Yeah, I have one other suggestion, and that is just as a general board policy, if anyone is promising us money or telling us that money's no problem, it's available, that we get it in writing.
Yes.
So maybe that's an obvious point,
Or in the rules,
Yeah.
as far as when things need to be
Deadline.
submitted.
And can you send us the official administration policies on this fund? Yeah, they were not very verbose in their instructions for that fund too, so.
Even now, the accommodation is paid because it is open again for this next fiscal year. And I called Mary and I talked to her because there wasn't a clear, process. And at first, there's several ways you can do it. If you can become a vendor with the city and then they can reimburse you directly. And I thought, well, that's great. Let's become a vendor. But there was one piece that you still have to do a W-9, you have to do create an account, an online account, but then there was another piece where you had to register with the city with their revenue department, and it's okay, it got to be way too much when Southeast Uplift could be the one.
That's their job.
Yeah,
It's
they're
their job,
already
right,
in
and
there.
as I'm sitting
Yeah.
there going, I'm like, this is their job.
That's why they're there.
That's why they're there, right, so.
Raison d'etre.
But anyways, yes, not a lot of, really no clear instruction as to how to.
All right, well, on our,
Do we have another, is that the motion that we need, that we don't need anything else?
no, we voted on the letters.
Okay.
The next thing with Southeast Uplift is our fiscal sponsorship, which comes due to be renewed. And so we have this lovely application. Last year, I submitted them, and they have a new fiscal sponsorship coordinator, and it's Gabby. Do you remember her last name? Gabby something. She's very lovely. So last year our projects were, of course, our general sponsorship, which is our kind of main donation account that anybody can donate to. National Night Out, neighborhood cleanup, and the Spooktacular. And then the worksheets, which if I remember correctly, I just used the ones from the year prior. But that is what is here, and we need to decide if we are going to renew these or terminate them, or if we want to add any new accounts to these.
Sounds to me like they can't be trusted to start with.
Well, that's good because we never put money in these. We make them hold these empty accounts open for us in the hopes that someone will donate. So,
Is the egg drop listed?
the egg drop is not, because that is not our event.
Okay.
That is Hope City Church, and that is an event ticket they run on their, I think it's Eventbrite, however they do their tickets. And then they donate, they have a out-of-neighborhood donation ticket that people can choose to purchase, and then they give us the whole chunk of that as a check. So, they have actually been our best fundraiser this year. Because the cleanup was, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it certainly was not what it was supposed to be and what it's been in the past. And Southeast Uplift, while we were there, Molly said that Metro has told them that it is not intended to be a fundraiser.
And what the heck is it intended?
It is a community service.
Yeah, community service to clean the neighborhood.
And what was our profit? Did we even make a profit this year?
Oh, yeah.
After we finally got reimbursed, like $600 or something.
I thought it was more
Like, it was, and we used to make, what did we used to make in the past, Malcolm?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we had to close down early too.
right, but even with as many as we had, it should have been more than that. We should have gotten reimbursed more.
Yeah.
Months of planning and a full day of work is not worth under $1,000 for us as a board. So, I think Metro might want to think about how they're encouraging neighborhoods to do cleanup.
That's a bummer too, because our neighborhood needs an event like this. Like,
Well, we were hoping to do two, but we couldn't get any information, and so, and
We
now
still
that
haven't actually gotten that fully resolved.
and we're not getting reimbursed enough to even make doing one worth our while, so why would we offer two?
Well, then they could just hire paid staff.
Stephanie, did you have something?
No, I'm just not focused on this.
So this is the fiscal sponsorship from last year. Are there any of these events that anybody wants to remove from fiscal sponsorship? Again, they're general sponsorship, National Night Out, Neighborhood Cleanup, and Spooktacular. Are there any we want to remove?
Is there any benefit of removing like
No.
versus just leaving them in hopes that somebody will make a deposit?
We can say renew
Costs us nothing.
on all of them, use the same information from last year, and vote on this.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
Hold on, Lynn has a question.
The egg drop, do we have to include it in the general at all?
We do not, because they make the check directly to us. This is for donations that people want to be tax deductible, and so they write it to Southeast Uplift, and Southeast Uplift holds the money for us, and then reimburses us from it. But we've never actually used it, at least since I've been on the board.
Sorry, so if somebody donates and they put Southeast Uplift, how do we ensure that it goes to us if somebody goes?
It's towards the BDNA, care of Southeast Uplift, or, they put BDNA in the memo line. There's not a really great way to track it, as far as I know, or as far as I can tell. But we have not used it since I've been on the board, so I'm just totally sure.
In the letter. The donation that Advantis gave us, though, should have, according to Southeast Uplift, like after the fact, should have gone to them and then to us, but I did not know that's not the time.
And I didn't
So they'll
know,
do an entry
yeah.
and then.
But if we'd sent it to them, we probably would have gotten reimbursed. So, Stephanie, go
So I
ahead.
have two things. One, Lynn, thank you 1,000 times for going through all these invoices.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can we have a round of applause for this?
It's no fun, yeah. The other thing is, does Southeast Uplift help neighborhoods find money sources? Or do they just say, oh, well, that's not supposed to be?
It is in their charter.
Grant administration is supposedly one of their core tasks. So supporting the neighborhoods, according to the executive director, is only about half of what they do. The rest is grant administration, and was it community engagement, I want to say?
But how about other grants aside, though?
Speaking of grants, are we filling one out this year? Submitting one?
Not yet, that I know.
Well, the answer is
That's
coming up too.
We can barely get them to answer our emails. I don't even know if they do that or not.
Oh, yeah, it's grants time.
It is.
I mean, no, look for other sources of money. Tina?
So are we still actually going to continue pursuing Southeast Uplift, or are we going to actually consider jumping ship?
First, I want to know why Linz is considering jumping ship back.
Oh.
Jumping back into Southeast.
Back into Southeast.
Because for people who don't know, they had left.
Yeah.
Gone
Left,
to
yeah.
east. Yeah.
I mean, because if they think the pasture's greener over here, we could talk to them, but
Do any of us know anybody in Lentz to talk to?
not really.
Well, Jennifer, I mean, we can contact
We
their
can reach out.
leadership. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a bandwidth to do it right now, unfortunately. I just don't.
Shannon, excellent. Shannon! Thank you. You rock. You are wonderful. Okay, so we need to, Gail, you started to make a motion about fiscal sponsorship renewal?
Yeah, I say we just hit renew. It's the easiest option, and it doesn't cost us anything, and hypothetically speaking, we may get something out of it, maybe.
Okay, do we have a second on the floor? All right, motion is on the floor to renew our fiscal sponsorship application, same as it was last year, seconded by Malcolm. All in favor? That's 12. All opposed? All abstaining. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you guys for making life easy.
Because we used to get grants, we used to write grants and get grants. One year we got a $2,500 grant. We did a mailer to every person, every household in Brentwood.
Speaking of mailers to every household, there is a way to mail every household without us having to address it. It is called Every Door Direct Mail. You can send a postcard up to 9x12 for 18 cents, and they deliver to every house on the postal route. So if we want to pursue that with some of our communication funds that are coming up, which we've been told to expect about the same amount of $14.31. But
Let's wait and see.
yes.
Yes.
So
Actually see it.
when that actually comes to fruition, we can talk about maybe doing a resolve to get involved in the new year kind of mailer, maybe in January. Hit people up while they're feeling generous and guilty from Christmas.
I will take responsibility for following up on the grant application. If we need to do that, and I'll report back and draft something.
Because it's not hard to do.
No, it's not hard to do.
I did it for years.
It is easy and it's money, so.
Awesome. We'll look into grants.
That is a good use of my time.
Anything else on Southeast Uplift before we move on to equity and inclusion?
It's all the same topic.
All right, go for it, Meg.
Well, happy news, which is that Shannon and Rachel and Tina, right, and I, and was there one other person?
Esther was kind of
Hanging out, but she was just listening. Are moving forward with the equity and inclusion vision and mission and forward momentum of the committee, which is great since I was kind of doing it myself, and I love having all these wonderful people in their brains. And so our next steps, I'm gonna let one of you talk about what we talked about if you want to, because I don't need to talk all the time. I already talked enough. Shannon, would you like to say something? Or not?
Yeah. I have to remember.
Sorry, I didn't.
So one of the things we talked about was ways to reach out to people, because we do our mailers to new people who move into the neighborhood who have bought homes. How can we sort of bring in people who have lived in the neighborhood for a long time, or people who are just renters, and how we can get those people more included. And so one thing that we talked about was scheduling a full neighborhood canvas sometime in the future to like go door to door and meet with people and maybe give them literature that they may need or access to how they can get involved with the community. And so
I think we discussed in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to give props where they're due, Rachel, you've had this idea for quite a while, and I really have appreciated, the creative thinking that you've contributed. Do you want to add anything to what Shannon said? Okay, just checking in. And Tina?
I'm wiped out.
Oh, you're wiped out. So
would this be a project where we could partner with community other community partners like the Learning Gardens Lab to maybe advertise the farm stand and use the power of interns and students in our canvassing assistance.
Good idea.
Especially since they now have a community development coordinator.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah, Boy Scouts we would include. I know there's a Girl Scout troop that was trying to get active in the neighborhood.
Well, I was also thinking the community watch.
That would be awesome
They've
too.
talked about it.
Yeah.
And I think that part of, if we're gonna do the effort to go door to people, we should maybe come up with some ideas around what kind of information we want to interface with community members so that we're getting the most out of what we're doing, because this is a lot of effort.
And have an easy packet to give them with more information, maybe have
Brochure
like
and
5 bullet points to hit, here's more information on all of it.
Yeah.
Yes, and Derek, I'm sorry.
Hold on, Stephanie was raising her hand.
Yes, you are, please.
Okay, so in our work plan, we have proposed that one of our action streams, which is to engage residents with one another as opposed to us just doing things. We thought of advertising meal training. This was Tina's idea, and this might be a nice opportunity to do that, to carry out that first task, that first engagement task of the work plan. So part of that communication, the canvassing, could be the meal training.
That's good, because that's a very concrete, as you say, a very concrete activity and networking activity and community building in that way. It's very profound. I mean, it's basic, it's food, you know. So I think that would be a nice first kind of case study in a way, you know.
Shannon?
No, I think Rachel had something to say. Oh, I was just going to say that I would also hope to like try and get information from people in the community about things that they're involved in, things that they want to see happen in the neighborhood. And
maybe you could develop some questions to ask.
Yeah.
Ask every neighbor the same questions. Maybe, you know, how long have you lived in the neighborhood? What do you like? What do you not like? If you could change one thing, you know, come up. I love that of having some feedback as well. Other ideas?
See, I'd probably leave out what do you not like, but what is one thing you would like to change?
Something that
There you go.
Or add.
Yeah, what would you?
Something that's
what would you
proactive
improve?
versus grumbling.
Sure.
Yeah.
What would you like to see added to Rapid Darlington?
Well, maybe also, you know, some immediate hot topics like 6 reasons why you should care about Brentwood Darlington, you know, because blah, 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 our new park, or because we need your help in monitoring precision task cards, or, you know,
So we
meal
could
tray,
include
number 3.
all
or-
of that information as well, you know, say here's the topics, they're all included in this packet to know more.
It's good brainstorming.
Shannon?
And another thing that we talked about was this is going to be a lot of work. It's great, and we should expect that we'll have more engagement at these meetings. But when somebody shows up who's never been to a meeting, how do we make sure that they're up to speed with what it is that we're talking about? Because, you know, when you're new, you just show up and you're like, I don't know what. Okay, yeah.
You do crazy things like stand up and say, hey, put me up on the board.
Yeah.
And the whole sort of underlying intention of equity work often is to, how can we go out and meet people where they are in the community? So do we want to take some of this energy and momentum out into in the community and go to other people's meetings, groups of people who are meeting, for example, the That's Us Tech group that we had some connections with, and you know, not just expect people to come to the meeting, but go when and where people are gathered already for their own groups and meetings. I don't know about churches. I don't know. Is that a thing we can do or not?
I
Like,
think we should absolutely reach out to the faith institutions and the peace or the Insight Meditation Center.
I've been doing outreach to institutions within Brentwood Darlington. So,
Yes,
for
you have.
instance,
Yes.
the Portland Insight Meditation Center that Derek is next to just put out a survey to all of their membership on what their new initiative called Living the Dharma, or, you know, living their faith, their
The
beliefs.
teaching, Dharma. Yeah.
Right. And so they're having their first organizational meeting, and I responded to their survey saying I'm on the board of Brentwood Darlington. And I think you responded to Chelsea.
I haven't responded yet, but I saw it in my email.
Okay, so, because it's the second time around.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'll be going to their organizational meeting, trying to, build some bridges with their institution and Brentwood Darlington.
Feel free to, when you know you're going, feel free to call or text me.
Okay.
I'm happy to walk across the street.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that's a great example. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Wonderful.
then we have a Jewish cemetery that I have a connection to, and so I also talked to the rabbi about, could they get involved? It's a diverse organization as well.
Yeah, yes, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
When we do our spring walkout, would it be possible, and I'm going to say the word computer survey, don't hit me.
We won't hit you.
If we have a postcard that, you name address, phone number, like a return, one thing you would like to see added to Brentwood Darlington, and then take the survey online, and then you can mail it in or do it online, but get them to acknowledge us, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
You want to bring them to the site, or bring them to us after we've engaged, you want to have that policy?
Yeah, here, take this postcard, mail it to us, or go online, take our survey. What's one thing you would like to see added in Brentwood Darlington? Simple,
I
if
like
we get the
policy
word skate
engagement.
park, or if we get the word swimming pool, or if we get the word, something, marching bands.
If you find one of the people who yelled at me for not doing a scientific enough survey to do that survey, I am all for it. But I am not putting out another survey for a while.
Well, no, it'd be spring, but.
No, that's not okay. No, you can go get one of the data experts that yelled at me. You go right ahead.
Terrific. Same kind of thing. I think that there's so many skills in our neighborhood that we just don't even know, and so maybe part of this can be connecting that. And I don't know how to put that, but some people might be really, really good at website design, or somebody might be, and we just aren't making those connections. So I don't know.
Maybe a question like, is there a skill that you would like to help out with?
Do you have a skill you could offer 2 hours a month?
Yeah.
I mean, I think having some specific tasks that need to be done and asking for volunteers for them is more likely to get people to respond than just being like, what skills do you have? I mean, I guess for me, I need a little bit more direct, what do you need? And I can help you out.
We've been talking for a while about having a chart of this task is once a month for 2 hours. This one is a half an hour, one time, or whatever, just so that people can, I'll do that, I can't. I think you're right. A little structure of that kind would be really great.
It's like a calendar of events for the year.
Plus an open-ended question about extra skills that you want to donate. Yeah. Yes, and.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like we're going to be discussing this more over the coming months.
There you go.
As well as our work plan. Check out the draft work plan, guys. We're going to vote on it next month.
Oh, we're going to vote on it next month.
Yes.
Because we'll be sending it out, but do we want to send it to the whole mailing list?
We can do that. We can also put it up on our site as well. So, and we can find a way to put it up for comment somehow. I'll figure out how to do that.
Okay, but so this first work plan, let's not invite too much comment. And the reason I'm saying that, the only reason I'm saying that is we've created a basic structure and we've put some stuff, some tasks into it. And we have next year and the year after to start putting more stuff into it. We had that one big session here where people put up all the Post-its. And we developed the action streams, and then from that we've developed a basic work plan. And
experiment.
We can include a link to it in our next newsletter and say, come to this meeting, we are going to vote on this plan.
There you go.
And then, yes, and it's an experiment, and we're going to be revising it as we go forward. But
I personally, I'm exhausted from working on it, and
Yeah.
I want to stop
Yeah.
and just have it, and then, have a pause where it's just in place.
It's time to
I'm willing
start
to
it.
check off, okay, we worked on it this month, that month, we did this.
We could
did that.
frame it as it
And-
came from the visioning session
Yes.
that
Which it
that the
did.
community
Which it did.
did, which it did.
Yeah,
And
which
there
it
will be
did.
plenty of opportunities. We don't have to say, don't send us your ideas now, but we can frame it such that
Yeah,
people
I need
will understand.
a rest, I'm willing to work out in the future and so on, but I need a respite from it. So that's all I'm saying, is I don't want
So
an
board
avalanche
members
of commentary.
comment,
Okay.
and if you have any comments,
If you comment, be prepared to step in and do some of the.
Thank you, yes.
and I think you feel about the strategic plan like I do about surveys right now.
All right,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
and if we're gonna vote on it next month, it seems to me that during this intervening month, when people are looking at it, the board members might want to ask for clarifying questions. You don't have to answer them, Stephanie, necessarily.
Oh, no,
Because the whole committee.
And we can also talk about it
advise
on
them.
our committee's meeting night.
Right. Yes.
Review.
Good. But it's very exciting, actually, because, the 4 people who got together and worked on it, it was a lot of work to kind of put it together. And I would like to have a round of applause for Stephanie specifically. She spends about 9 hours a day on BDNA.
Yes. Okay, so we're running a little behind. Do we have anything we want to hear, Stephanie?
Okay, but just on the work plan, so we should send this out to the board and to everybody, and to the email list and to our website right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Do we have anything for parks? Esther's not here and there's no updates on schools that she didn't already get.
Go, please, yes.
Just briefly on parks, we got a deluge of email attachments today after hearing nothing since August 29th. So we got the minutes from the August 29th meeting that were due a week after the meeting.
This is the Arrow Heights Park, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, Arrow Heights Park Design Group. And so minutes, the agenda for the next meeting, which is scheduled for next Wednesday the 10th at 6:30 at Smile, Southern Orland. And there's usually 10 minutes on the agenda for general public comment. Anyone's welcome, of course, to sit and observe.
What time was that meeting again?
6:30. And I just forwarded everything to you. If you could be persuaded to post it on the website, then no one can criticize us from Arrow Heights or elsewhere.
Oh, they'll find it.
And then we also got a brief summary of the survey responses on the park that closed on the 22nd of September. They received 355 responses. Ooh. And then there's a report of how people voted, but just quickly perusing it since I received it this morning. Hiking trails were really popular. Most people voted for a hybrid park, surprise, surprise, nature people. And people also valued wildlife highly. And there's a bunch of other details, but if that's up on the website soon, then everybody can read it in its full glory. And we had 108 people sign in to the open house that was held from 10 to 1 on Saturday, September 8th. So I would say it's pretty well attended, and those were just the people who signed in. They suspect that there were more there.
There were.
So that's the brief update, and I did get an email from their naturalist, Christian Hanning, in response to my question to the project manager like 2 months ago of why there was still a air monitoring equipment on site. And it took forever to get an answer to this, but apparently it's the U.S. Forest Service and PSU who are doing more studies of moss and lichens.
Okay.
But they said, we will get a copy of the report, but we can't give it to you, which I thought was exceedingly odd.
Where's the equipment?
It's down by Mains by Trade.
Yeah, but on Harney, right?
On Harney.
Across from Precision Cast Parts.
On Park Grant.
I saw that,
Yes,
yeah.
it's been there the whole time, and so all
all the other stations were removed. And I kept asking everyone, Oregon Health Authority, the toxicologist, DEQ, nobody knew. And so I said, hey, project manager, it's on parks property, you have to know, you're designing a park. Yeah. Then a month later, I got a response, well, it wasn't a park permit. I don't care. Would you please find out?
So they can't give you a copy of the report, who the heck can?
The city gets one.
So why do we not have access to that?
Well, that's a very good question. That is the question I should ask.
It should be. And then, Pam, one other question on that. Have they, has the new consulting firm started with their VR yet? Their communications?
It was the consultant who sent us this email with all these attachments. So yes, it appears that they are on the job, just running extremely late.
Oh, well, in the words of their former employee, it's just not so easy, is it?
Yeah. I have a 30-second report.
Okay, go for it.
As of tonight, all of the illegal campers were evicted from Arrow Heights Park.
Oh, really?
And if they are found within the park, they will be arrested for trespassing.
When did that happen?
And them and all of their junk were to have been vacated by, I think it was like 5 or 6 tonight, because the park ranger's on it.
All right.
Did they bring like a drop box or?
Okay. That's all I got in the email, is that the park rangers are on it. They were all evicted, and them and all their trash was supposed to be out.
Who sent you the email?
Arrested.
Who sent you the email?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're going to fly through the rest of this as fast as we can. Events and outreach, we already talked about Spectacular a bunch. Brochures and magnets are being printed but are not available yet.
I'm going to give everyone an update. We had 17 new neighbors. And of course, as soon as I saw them, a brochure went in the mail. And then of course I've got 3 volunteers that just signed up to do some canvassing and put a, so they can see somebody from the board.
It's really fun.
It is, actually.
To get to talk
And
to.
17, that's what, 6, 6, and 5, so it's not a big number.
All right, and you're gonna let us know when brochures come in?
Yes.
All right.
I'll send out, I'll probably talk to Debbie Anderson tomorrow, the Oregon Business Forums, and I'll just give you a brief update.
Awesome, and we have old brochures to use up, so if you want to canvas, talk to Derek.
I have an off-the-wall question. When you get the list of the new people in the neighborhood, is it possible to post that on our webpage?
We should not post it probably for personal privacy reasons.
Right.
But we can,
I bring it to the meetings, and so when I'm looking, if you're curious, like I
does it have their names on it?
Well, this has their names on it, and of course, this is public record. But the thing is, we don't want to weird anybody out, you know what I mean? We don't want, so the idea is we want to befriend them and not make them feel like we're invading their privacy. That's why I wouldn't put it up there on the web.
But we can send it to the board around in our email to do outreach.
Okay, yeah.
Like which he has done in the
Okay,
past.
so, yeah, because if there's somebody nearby, you could knock on the door and just introduce yourself, and,
On that note, a footnote, an aspiration, I think, that has been discussed is for us to have like a job aid for walking around, so that if people ask you, well, tell us about that precision cast parts thing, you can have an elevator speech that, so you don't feel like, well, I don't know. So we're kind of.
That's where they are.
Yep, they're there. Looking for ways to make it easier for people who would like to canvas but need a job aid. So that's future plan.
That would be great to brainstorm at a future committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on outreach, Derek?
that's it.
Okay. Do we have a secretary's report, Stephanie?
Okay, well,
Or are we
I don't,
waiting?
okay, so one part of the secretary's report would be the minutes from the last meeting, which I only set out
That's
today.
fine.
I read them.
Do we have enough?
How many
readers?
people read the minutes that were sent out? Men or the slackers?
Yeah.
Comments, but no. So we have enough to approve
I read
them.
them right before I got here, but I read them.
Yeah, I saw them show up and was like, oh.
Thank you, Pam, for doing the first part, and we got the stuff from the mayor's office, and I did.
Apologies for sending that too late.
Yes, thank you.
That was quite informative. I was really happy to read all that.
Okay.
So the stuff from the mayor's office, we will post up online. I just did not get to it today.
It's okay, you're.
So,
And it's attachment number 2.
Yeah, something like that.
It's at the end of the minutes.
correct.
Okay. All right, well, then we have some.
You should
approve it. All right, I move that we adopt the September board meeting minutes.
Okay, motion is on the table by Stephanie to
I'm gonna
approve the minutes from September, seconded by Rob. All in favor? 2, 4, 8, 10, 9 in favor, all opposed, all abstaining.
People that didn't read it.
Yeah, we've got 3 abstentions.
It's okay.
And we're honest,
Let's
right?
not be, yeah.
Motion passes, minutes are approved.
Okay, great. All right,
Excellent.
I'm gonna say, you're not gonna like this. I want to have a round of applause for Stephanie and her minute taking. I'm sorry, I just did a little bit. Because that's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
All right. And Stephanie, I'm gonna guess you also have a little report on SEAM for us, our Southeast Inactive Motion.
Okay, so I met with the one other person presently working on SEAM, and we met at Southeast Uplift. We were the only people in the whole building. We met in a darkened, large room. Jeez. 2 of us sitting at the table. It was very strange to be working on something, a plan that encompasses 7 neighborhoods. And but we have an outline. We had a very good meeting. Matthew Williams and I'm working on demographic profiles for the 7 neighborhoods in the area in general, and that includes Lens, or western part of Lens. And then I'm working on the transit part, and then I'm hoping that Southeast Uplift volunteer Terry Dubinsky Milton will be working on the bicycle part, and he said he would.
Yeah, he will.
So I think even though we don't have a lot of manpower engaged in creating this request to the city for planning money, I still feel that we'll succeed in putting together a good request, and it'll just take a little longer than we thought it would. And I still wish that Southeast Uplift had helped us get more participation from other neighborhoods, but it just didn't happen. So, all right, I still want to make this happen.
Have we asked them to include it in their newsletter?
I mean,
they now apparently have somebody doing newsletters again, so.
I don't think a newsletter is the vehicle.
Okay.
I think it's an outreach to the different land use and transportation committees by Southeast Uplift people saying, this is going to benefit your neighborhood down the way, and you're going to do this part.
They should be supporting us, and they've been supporting.
Okay, so it's just another part of the dysfunction, in my opinion. But nevertheless, we who are working on it, we are putting together a good report, and it's going to happen. So I'm happy to report about that. And then there was just one other thing I wanted to say. Do you remember a long time ago, we had talked about having a pilot program, a shuttle that would go around the neighborhood and take people over the Max line. And then we were going to apply for a Metro grant, and I met with the Metro planner, and Metro was very enthusiastic about this. And all of a sudden, Metro said, TriMet says no Metro money is to go to any kind of project like that, because TriMet is hiring a consultant to do a study about this very same thing. And so the planner I met with promised me that she would put me in touch with a TriMet person who could tell me about the study, and maybe we can connect into the same kind of project in a slightly different way. And so time passed. It was back in July, and she reached out to somebody at TriMet, and then nothing. And we got busy with other stuff. I finally just asked her, Marnie, where's the TriMet consultant that you promised me? And she said, well, this guy said he would contact us, BDNA, and me, and she gave me the email thread, and sure enough, he promised her that he would, but he didn't. So I reached out to him and have gotten nothing. So
a letter to Ted.
Well,
that's the answer.
TriMet.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
power unto itself, or kingdom unto itself.
Yeah.
So I'll keep trying, but, you know, it's
Thank you.
just frustrating.
Yeah.
That, but I still think it would be a great project, and it would be a nice inclusion in
Yeah.
our scene plan too. But I did offer the TriNet consultant, I said, we're here and we would love to offer ourselves as your pilot testing ground for
Thank you.
whatever you're coming up with.
For your
I'm
ongoing
invested in
persistence.
parking on Flazel for the Max station. I would either,
Would go with you on that. I've been chased by a very large fence post in that area.
so I park at the Fuller station, which is harder to get to, it's further away, but safer.
And which station is that?
The Fuller Road station behind PetSmart.
Behind the Home Depot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't tell which direction. Oh, this is for the green line. Oh,